The War for the Tower. It's good. warforthetower.com.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Doctor Who. Season 50, Episode 8, according to Amazon. What? The Day of the Doctor. In this episode, we find out what the Doctor's involvement was, or was going to be, had things not changed, in the downfall of Gallifrey. And John Hurt is here, looking real Ian McKellen-ish to me. And this was a pretty solid episode, I thought. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Jamie.
So, first of all,
yeah,
I want to talk about the response that we got to the last episode, where we posited to our listeners whether we should continue or not.
Overwhelming response of we should.
Okay, because I have had a lot of response of, well, if you don't, I'm not going to be mad at you.
There have been a few of those, but you don't have access to the Whovian
That
group.
was what I was going to say. It was like, I feel like in that group it's going to be very different.
Yeah. There are... Okay, so somebody made, I think it was Chris Goodnight, made a thread that was like, let's share screen caps and GIFs of the next Doctor. The one I have in mind, I already know is going to piss Jamie off. And... so everybody was sharing these moments from the next few seasons, none of which I remember, mostly because I barely paid attention to those seasons. But what I was getting from looking at all of this was maybe I should have been paying attention.
Huh.
Because this is all really, like, some of the things the Doctor was saying. There was, like, funny stuff where I was like, it's funny and I don't even get the context. It was intriguing. And then the stuff that everybody was saying about, like, one person, I can't remember who, said season 8's not the best, but it's pretty good. Season 9 and 10 are really good. And that this is, I guess, spoiler-ish, but not really, since the first thing you texted me today was, what is Clara doing here? Clara's still the companion. A lot of people, their opinion of her changed with those seasons.
Okay.
So I started watching some of the episodes, as I said I would, and I actually was really enjoying them. I think something happened with me with Doctor Who where I held on to things that I don't hold on to now. And that colored my opinion of what I was watching. Like, you know, I've been really clear about how I always liked Matt Smith as a Doctor, but I didn't like those seasons. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that was because I loved David Tennant so much that I was sort of being stubborn about those seasons.
Gotcha.
And my mind has changed about it. And I think by the time we'd gotten to the 50th, I had issues with the 50th that I don't have now either.
Okay.
And these first few episodes of the next season that I've watched so far, how I felt about the new Doctor, I'm not finding myself thinking those things now.
Okay.
Because I'm giving it a fair shot, and I think that that's part of my problem is I wasn't giving any of it a fair shot. I was just kind of done, and I just was like, this isn't holding my interest, so it must not be good.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I can understand that happening.
I think, And a lot of people agree with us that this second half of season 7 is not great.
Yeah.
And somebody said, and I don't want to misquote who, because last week I attributed the Neil Gaiman article share to Kat, and it was Tori, and I'm sorry. So I don't remember exactly who said it, but...
So insulting. Ugh, Jamie,
they,
God.
They said that during the latter half of season 7 and probably or possibly season 8, Stephen Moffat was really focused on doing the 50th during the latter half of season 7, and he was very focused on Sherlock. So Doctor Who suffered for those things, that lack of attention.
Yeah. I mean, this episode definitely felt very Sherlock-y to me also. So it kind of makes sense that he was like super in Sherlock mode and focusing on this episode a lot. And so it would have more of his hallmarks in that respect.
And then I guess with season 8, he was still very consumed with Sherlock. So while it sounds like the overall consensus is that it's not as lackluster as second half of season 7, the lack of attention does show its head a little bit.
Okay.
But most of the people that were responding in the Whovian group were like, I get it. If you guys decide not to, I understand. It's your show. But I really wish you would stick with it because there's some really great stuff in there. And a lot of people think you're really, really going to like the next Doctor.
Okay. I am going to trust you guys. I am willing to stick it out. I mean, I didn't really intend to just quit right away anyway. You know, that's not like the way that I do things. Mostly. But...
Oh, no. Don't you rage quit things all the time?
Oh, my God, girl. I should more than I do. But yeah, I really noticed a theme too. And I don't know, this was part of what I wanted to ask you because of the Whovian group to see if there was like a pattern here, because the people that I saw saying that they really like the next Doctor were all men. And it was all women that I saw being like, yeah, he was not my favorite. So I'm a little bit curious on that too, if that was like a pattern that you had going on there, or if that was just, you know, a sort of accident, coincidence situation, you know?
That's not what I was seeing.
Okay, cool.
Before this like question was posed to our listeners, I would have said, yeah, I think all of the people I know that say they like the next Doctor are dudes. But the response in the group was very much both genders. Being like, I really liked a lot of that stuff, and there's some of the best things that happen in Doctor Who, and there's some really great moments, and I like that Doctor a ton. And the one thing that I specifically complained about, which I'm not going to talk about, is the one thing that other people were like, yeah, that's not the greatest.
Okay.
Like, that it's this one thing he does that I was just like, ugh, over it. But they were like, yeah, that's not, I mean, but other than that, he's pretty great. And I really like that actor, so I feel like I owe it to myself to give it another try. And I think we should see how we feel.
I want to admit on the outset, though, to everybody, that I am personally deeply worried that you guys are going to expect me to like something and like it better and have been glad I stuck with it. And then I will not like it or be glad I stuck with it. And I will feel really bad. So I just want to put it out there that I'm really worried about that in terms of letting everybody down, because I don't, like, you guys know me, I'm not going to lie. And I try to be like fair. I'm not going to go into anything with a bad attitude either. I really try not to do that. But also I get nervous when everybody is like, I think that this will be better and that you'll like this better and this will. I'm like, oh, but what if I don't? And everybody was so optimistic and they really thought. And then I wound up finding a whole new thing that was wrong with it that I don't like, that nobody even anticipated. And it turns out I'm even more negative than anybody expected me to be. Like, so that is something that I'm worried about.
I mean, if it turns out that what people think you're going to like about this next Doctor or some future characters that show up, if you end up not feeling that way, I think people would understand that you gave it a try.
That's true.
And it's just not for you.
I just get worried. It's sort of like the same thing as, because you and I were talking about people wanting me to do like live watches of certain episodes. And live watches are a little bit of pressure sometimes because I know somebody chose this live watch for a reason. They want me, like for Spoil Me, I'll get live watches of certain episodes. And almost every time I'm like, oh, that's why during the episode. There have been a couple times, though, that I have not had that much of a reaction throughout. And I've been like, did I just really disappoint whoever paid a little bit extra for my reaction when I genuinely don't know what they thought my reaction was going to be about? Because to me, nothing that wild actually happened this episode. Like, that's happened. So that's sort of what this feels like for me, is like a live watch in a different way.
Yeah.
So I want to just put that out there, that I'm just feeling nervous because this is the first time I feel like that I've covered something that's this popular and had this kind of reaction to it and had people actively having to root me on to keep going. This has never happened before. So it's just a hard thing to know how to handle and be like honest about it.
You remember, people have been, from the very beginning, like after our first episode, being like, please don't quit, please don't quit. Like, this is, I don't know if it's unique to Doctor Who or because people know that not every Doctor is for everyone, not every season is for everyone, not the show in general isn't for everyone. That they were already like bracing themselves for like, oh, but what if she hates it? Please don't hate it. And for the most part, like, we've been disappointed in things and we've had issues with the writing.
I'm sorry, there's a dog barking.
It's okay. But it just, there's never been a moment where we're like, why are we watching this?
I won't lie, there have been moments like that for me. There absolutely have. I'm not going to pretend that hasn't happened, where I've ended an episode and been like, what am I doing? It has happened for sure. And then like a few episodes later, I'm like, oh, there it is. There's the thing that people seem to talk about when they talk about this show. And then it'll be gone again. So it's just sort of...
It's a very inconsistent show.
Yeah.
It has really high highs and really, really low lows. Like, it's not for everyone. And as a fan of Doctor Who, there's been stuff where I'm just like, ugh. All right, next. And I can't. There have definitely been episodes that I've been dreading having to cover.
I'm really interested to see if there are more of those coming up. I'm assuming there have to be. They can't all have just been taken care of by now.
Yeah, I mean, inevitably there are going to be duds.
That's part of why I like asking you how you felt when you first watched this at the start, because I'm always curious about that. Because sometimes you feel the same way you did, and sometimes it's changed a lot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let me tell you how I felt about the 50th.
Okay, go for it.
Originally, I was not a fan. I was really disappointed, and I didn't know what the big deal was. And now that I have some distance, let me tell you why I felt that way. I was really, really, really angry that they had Billie Piper there and she never got to interact with David Tennant. And that changed how I felt about the whole episode.
Oh my God.
I was so mad that they didn't have any interaction, that it ruined the whole thing for me. And then rewatching it, I don't feel that way because I actually paid attention to what her character's purpose was. Mm-hmm. And I guess because I was watching it with a little more of an analytical mind, that I was like, oh, why was I so mad? I was so mad.
I love thinking back to the way that I felt about things the first time in some case, like, for example, and I think I mentioned this on the show, how much I loved Grease 2 as compared to Grease 1.
Grease 2 is so good.
Grease 2 is far superior to Grease 1, and I will die on this hill, resurrect myself, and fight again, and die again. I fucking love Grease 2. Now, I haven't watched it in 25 years. So, is it possible that I will feel very differently were I to watch the 2 today? Probably. But I still, in my heart, I remember exactly how I felt. And there were no hot guys in Grease 1. There is a very hot guy in Grease 2. The girl is the one who has to change herself in Grease 1. And the guy is the one who has to change himself in Grease 2. Mm-hmm. And also, there were like weirdly modern songs in the second one because it was not, it was what it was. I want a cool rider. Oh, so good. And I know exactly what the factors were that caused me to like it. Were I to watch that today, I don't know if those factors would be the thing that would matter anymore. Am I somebody who I'd be like, yes, all of that's true, but plot-wise, this doesn't make sense. Or acting-wise, it doesn't hold up, or whatever. Maybe. But I had very specific reasons for feeling the way I did, and it just never changed. As much as I rewatched them, I always felt that way. And part of me wants to go back, and another part of me is like, I don't want to go back there again. I don't want any more Grease in my life, to be honest. But yeah, when as you grow and your priorities change about the media that you're consuming, you're just naturally going to have different reactions to things than you did. And it's sort of fascinating,
When I was a little kid, this is maybe embarrassing, but I don't care. When I was a little kid, I was obsessed with Grease 2. And I wasn't an only child, but my brother is very, very young. He's much younger than me, 6 years younger than me. So by the time I was like playing and whatever, he was too young to play with me. So I had a whole imaginary world. And I used to pretend I was in that movie.
Nice.
And I would run around my neighborhood and ride my bike and pretend I was Michelle Pfeiffer. I loved it.
On a motorcycle with a cute boy.
I don't even know if I cared about... I probably did care about the cute boy part, but my bike was her bike,
Right.
Like, I was pretending to be her. And I thought that I was the only person who liked that movie to that extent for a really long time. And then in my adult life, I have a group of friends, and some of them are like, Grease 2 is absolutely superior to Grease 1, and I will die on this hill. Yep. Then they still talk about it. My friend Sarah, she will fight you to the death that she's right on that.
Yeah, in my mind today, not having revisited either one, there is no contest. And it's not just because of John Travolta, although that's not a factor. But yeah, so, and I do want to mention too, I got a bunch of emails and messages from people who were responding. And like I said, most people were like, I wish you would stick it out, but if you don't, I really understand why you wouldn't. A lot of people saying similar things to what you said, which was like, this is around where I started to like lose interest and yada, yada, like a lot of that same feeling. And then I got a message from Bert. Hello, Bert. And he says that he had some suggestions for alternatives if we did quit and things that he would want us to cover. And I just wanted to address them because I think a lot of people don't know about what's going on with Spoil Me. Okay. Spoil Me is, for those who don't know, a commission-based show where enough people show interest in a particular title, and I put it on the list for people to commission an episode of it. And this is part of why, if you want to commission something that isn't on the list, you have to get in touch with me, because either you have to be prepared to commission all of it yourself, or you have to demonstrate that enough other people are interested that I will be able to finish the series by, talking about it in the group and suggesting it and seeing what responses are and me posting it, because I've had a few things that I started and never finished, and it breaks my heart. And the first suggestion is Fleabag, which has just been added to the Spoil Me lineup. And I think the first 3 episodes have been commissioned. They won't be happening until, I think, February. But Bert, if you are interested in that, the website, unspoiledpodcast.com, has a link to the Crowdcast page where all the events are listed, and you can go to the Fleabag event and register for it, and that way you will get reminders before they happen. Now, Jamie will attest to the fact that those reminders don't always work for people because they don't look at them. I have texted Jamie half an hour before getting on camera to remind her that the episode she commissioned is about to start, and she still missed it because that is a thing that happens. But it is something that will help.
In my defense, I commissioned those whether I can participate or not because I want you to cover them, and I'll listen to them later.
Sure.
I commissioned them so far out that I'm not always able to schedule myself not working.
I think we both know that was not what was happening there.
Sometimes I forget. Sometimes I don't know what time zones are, okay?
So Bert suggested Fleabag, which is on the schedule. And by the way, these are all solo shows where it's me on camera by myself talking about a thing. I like to think I can manage alone. I much prefer having a co-host, of course. But doing a solo show has certainly been a learning experience and an exercise in trying to be succinct when I normally sort of flounder and go, or just stare at the camera and then realize that anybody listening won't know that I'm staring at the camera. And there's just a dead silence for a few seconds. And now I have to explain that I was staring at the camera. The second one on the list is The Good Place, which I have already watched almost all of. So that can't happen. I could be a spoiled person for that. But I don't know a soul who hasn't seen that show, who is somebody that I co-host with right now.
Yeah.
Veep, which is one of those shows that I have heard is very good. I watched a few episodes and really was liking it. And then I got to a deeply fat-phobic, upsetting episode, and it just soured me entirely, and I never went back. Dark, also covering for Spoil Me. I'm starting season 3. I'm 2 episodes into season 3 at this point. The Boys, heard very good things about, potentially will be a Spoil Me show. The Expanse, I have heard back and forth things about. Some people say they really like it. Some people say they felt like it was started off strong and didn't really get where they wanted.
Those people are wrong.
Well, that one isn't really on the docket in either way, to be a future show or to be it potentially could be, but I haven't had enough strong response to that to make it into its own show, which is kind of what Spoil Me is for. It's for shows that and books that people want to hear my opinions on, but I probably wouldn't dedicate a free show to, because the free shows are really meant for things that have a huge existing fandom already. And Spoil Me is more for things that probably should get more attention than they do. And the Cradle series. Everybody read the Cradle series. I know I keep saying this, but seriously. So The Expanse could be for Spoil Me, but nobody has really suggested or committed to that.
I would like you to put that into the maybe pile for us if we stop Doctor Who.
Okay. Noted.
Because I love the show. I quit after 4 episodes originally because I felt like I just wasn't paying enough attention. And then I went back and back in February I binged the whole first 4 seasons. The 5th season just came out and it's the last season. The books are fucking incredible.
So would you want to do the books or the TV show?
I would want to do both, but I think the books first.
Girl. I think both sounds good.
The books are really, really good. Like, I think the books are obviously, as often happens, the books are better than the show. But the show is really good. And they're really similar. Like, they don't diverge from the books all that much. So if I had to choose between the two, I would say the books.
Okay.
And then after that, if you were like, yeah, these were fucking bomb, let's cover the show too, like, I'd be all for that. But I've read half of the series so far. They're really long and I haven't finished yet. But if we were going to take suggestions for something to cover, if we decide to stop this, that would probably be my number one, since you haven't read those books or watched the show.
Okay. Got it. And then the last thing is His Dark Materials. He says, I suppose this series fits the audience for Doctor Who best. I actually covered His Dark Materials, the book series, with Owen, my fiance. And that is a free show available to everybody. The TV show, I watched a lot of on my own, so I would not be able to be unspoiled for that. I'm not against covering it for a free show, because like fair enough people have asked a fair enough number.
I've never seen it or read it.
Okay, so yeah, that like if I was able to find somebody who hadn't read it, was going to be the thing that I was going to say, then that probably would be a good option. Because like I said, I didn't even finish watching the show, so I don't really have a good enough idea on whether I like it or not. There were parts of it while I was watching it that I did like, but I didn't feel like super strongly about it while I was watching it, and I wonder if that would change or how other people feel about it. So that is something that's like maybe on the table. But I just wanted to, this was a complete list, but a lot of stuff I already have addressed, seen, or am covering. And I just wanted to let Bert know about that. And a lot of people aren't aware of all of the Spoil Me shows out there that I'm covering. So,
yeah.
Because like I said, a lot of it is stuff that isn't super popular, and or it's just covering something that's ongoing, like Dark, is really hard.
Well, and His Dark Materials is ongoing. I think the second season just recently started on HBO.
Oh, is it only at the second season? I thought it had been out longer than that. Okay.
No, the second season just started a couple weeks ago. So, like, that's ongoing.
In that case,
I don't know how many seasons there's going to be.
I would because, like, I was sort of operating under the assumption that it was a few seasons in. In the case that it is not actually finished, or not even close to finished, I would say I wouldn't look at covering that for quite a while then. Because I have experience now with covering a currently airing show. It's difficult. Really, really tricky. It's one thing when it's me doing Spoil Me, because it's just on my schedule and that's all I need to worry about. But trying to do that for a show that Spoil Me, if I'm not covering one title, I have 12 other titles that I'm covering. There's always something. If I'm doing a regular show, then all of a sudden the feed goes dark for 8 months. I have to fill that time with something else, or just take a long break and then hope that my co-host is going to be available to come back in 8 months, just for a few months and then go again. And, I did that with Westworld. I'm doing that with Westworld. And it's worked out kind of by coincidence so far, but it has been tough. And I know that, by the time it was over this season, both of us were tired from having kind of added a whole new show into our routines for a couple of weeks, couple of months.
And you don't do them as they're airing, which, there's a lot of shows that do. They cover things week to week as they've aired. I don't think that people, they have no way of knowing, but it becomes clear in these moments that people don't know how scheduled you are.
Yeah.
And doing something weekly that's airing weekly means you have to do it in a very timely manner so that you're hitting that at the same pace as everyone else that's covering things as they're airing. You got to get it out like the next day.
Or you have to, like, the thing that with Westworld, we weren't covering that as it was airing because Rashawn wanted to go ahead and watch it by herself so that she could actually be the properly spoiled person before we started. And that is part of it as well, is I don't think that a lot of people realize, you know, the dynamic that works with this show most of the time is that somebody is familiar with the material and can answer questions and whatnot. If both people are watching it for the first time as it's coming out, it totally changes the way it's covered. And that's something that you can find from a lot of other shows.
Yeah, because neither one of you know what's coming. And what's fun about this dynamic is when one person asks a question, then the other person has to very creatively figure out how to answer that without spoiling things. When you both don't know what's next, it's not, then you're both unspoiled.
Yeah, that's something that some people have had complaints about with, like, me and Owen covering Legend of Korra and Last Airbender, is the fact that we are both unspoiled. So there are things that if we both missed it within the episode, the answer to a question, we'll just be in the midst of recording like, I don't know. Well, I don't know. People tell us. We'll come back to that next week. And people get very irate at the fact that we miss something. So, you know, and I understand that, but also, like, if we didn't do it that way, then that wasn't going to get covered. So you pick one, I guess. Right. So anyway, yeah, I just wanted to give some people ideas on if we were to say goodbye to Doctor Who, the ways in which I decide what I'm choosing to do next, the factors that are involved, and the fact that, you know, I have so many things going with Spoil Me that a lot of folks just seem completely unaware of, which is a shame because I think Spoil Me can be really fun. And for certain books and shows more than others, sometimes things can be confusing enough that if there isn't a spoiled host with me, I really am just like floundering because I'm like, I don't understand. But that doesn't happen that often. And, you know, there are some things that have been a real treasure that I'm so glad that I got to, like, watch or read that I don't think I ever would have if it weren't for the fact that somebody was paying me to do it.
Are you going to talk about the Cradle series again?
I would, but I was actually at that point thinking about Gravity Falls. Thank you, Melanie Linares, for that one. Gravity Falls is super underrated. Everybody should watch it. And the finale made me cry. So there's that. Anyway, back to this show. Let's get to our main event here. The 50th anniversary episode. Season 50. Episode 8. What?
I want to know what the logic is with those numbers. Where's the other 7 episodes? What are they talking about?
This was part, and let me go and see what the exact name was. Here it is. This was part of, according to Amazon, the 50th anniversary collection. And it's a series of, like, interviews, I think, and, like, maybe documentary type footage of the filming of previous seasons. So I had to, like, because I searched on Prime for the Day of the Doctor, and it brought me to this season, and I really came close to accidentally buying the season because it just brought me to the season, not the actual episode. And then I had to scroll through and find it because, as it turns out, it's this is episode 8 within it. But, and guys, help me with this logic. I mean, I guess it's because this is the 50th anniversary specifically, but you were talking about how there's an episode called The Time of the Doctor, which you almost thought was going to be the one because they're very similarly titled. The Time of the Doctor is its own episode that you can buy like a movie on Prime. It is not part of a series. It's not within a season.
It's not in the Christmas specials collection.
It is not.
Like that last Christmas one?
No.
What the fuck?
I have no understanding of what they're doing. I really don't. It's extremely confusing, and there's no internal logic that I can see at all. It's baffling.
I have good news for you.
What's that?
I have good news for
What's
you.
that?
HBO Max and Roku have come to an agreement.
Oh, thank God. We all knew it was going to happen, but Christ.
I believe, according to some of the things I read yesterday, that HBO Max may be available on your Roku today.
Ooh.
So I would give that a check and see. If you don't already have HBO Max, you're not already paying for it yourself, let me know. I'll give you my login.
Okay. I thought I had it via a friend's sign-in, but I'm starting to think that they just have regular HBO.
There is no regular HBO anymore.
There isn't, because like the old app for HBO still works on my Roku. But when I searched Doctor Who on that, it did not come up.
No, because it's not on HBO, it's on HBO Max. Maybe their login is because they have cable. And so they have the app because of their cable.
I don't think so, because cable, it's HBO Go, and this is HBO Now, and it's still working.
HBO Now was supposed to completely go away.
Oh, I don't know then. It's still working on my Roku.
That's weird because the way HBO did this was really fucking stupid. But HBO Now, like I had an HBO Now subscription. It was supposed to transfer over to HBO Max, but I canceled my HBO Now and signed up for HBO Max just to guarantee that I was going to have it. And then HBO Max went away like a week after, or HBO Now went away like a week or so after HBO Go. No HBO Max. So many. Whatever. I heard that Now was gone. That Max was superseding it. And that the HBO Go /HBO app was supposed to just be if you have HBO through your cable service. So, I don't know. But I did hear that the deal has been done and it's going to be on Roku. So that will help a lot because the way that Max organizes these seasons is correct and makes sense.
Yeah, I wish, because I had to buy this episode. But at least I didn't buy the season by accident, which I very nearly did because of Amazon sucking and being extremely unclear.
And I feel like the Doctor Who is the only example of them being this convoluted. That's not true because they did put the Battlestar Galactica miniseries as its own thing. And then Battlestar Galactica, the series, the show, separate from it.
Man.
So maybe they just don't like sci-fi? I don't know.
It just feels like they had somebody who couldn't give two shits, like organize everything, and then basically quit and walk out with the software to update it all and just be like, I don't know, figure it out, bitches. You didn't appreciate me while I was here, so I'm not fixing shit. Adios.
Or they just had somebody who's like never watched television before.
Maybe. Man, that is funny though.
So weird.
Okay, so this episode, I texted you, damn, Clara is here again. But good news, everyone. Good news, everyone. Clara is not given that much to do, so she annoyed me to a minimal degree. And honestly, it is really fun to see multiple doctors interacting with one another. That was probably my favorite part, was all of them. And I had seen GIFs of, ooh, lovely, looking at each other. And I completely forgot I ever saw that GIF. I've seen that GIF like a dozen times. Completely forgot about it. So when it happened, I had one of those weird moments of deja vu where you're like, I know I've never seen this show before. Why do I know this? And then I was like, oh, right. GIF culture is changing the way everything is processed in my brain. Tough. Gravity Falls is a bad one for that too. So many Gravity Falls GIFs out there that watching the show, I would recognize a scene because of a GIF. So yeah, I think that was consistently like my favorite thing, was just they all seem to have a really good time together.
Yeah.
And I enjoy whenever a show pokes fun at itself. Okay. I gotta see if I can take credit for this. I think I can. Have I called Matt Smith Dick Van Dyke? I feel like I said something about how he's very Dick Van Dyke-like.
Maybe in like, because he's so elastic.
Mm-hmm. If I didn't on the show, I definitely did to Owen. Okay.
I can't remember if you ever said it on the show. It's possible that you did at the start.
Because, yeah, he has reminded me of Dick Van Dyke consistently, just due to, he's so gangly. His physicality, as people say, is front and foremost at my mind when I think about him as an actor, which is part of what makes it so hard for me to process him playing a serious character ever. Because he would have to get his body under control. And I don't see how he does that because it seems completely outside of his control at all times.
He's so different on The Crown because he's very rigid. And I wonder if he's like mentally containing himself because Prince Philip is not a lunatic. He's not flailing about.
What is it that he says? Is it impossible for you to speak without flopping your hands about? Something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, John Hurt says it. And then they like immediately cut to him just like with his hands in the air.
Yeah, there's just some people that like the way they behave in a role, it's like it feels so completely natural to who they are as a person that you can't imagine that they're ever able to do anything else. Because that's just how they are as a human being. And that for me is Matt Smith and his flailing. Like that's just, he's not getting around that. That's just how he is as a person. I mean,
he's a muppet.
Yeah, you know, and I'm sure because he's an actor, that is not true. And that he can indeed shut that off or turn it back on. But for my brain, it's not processing at all.
It's entirely possible that that's all the Doctor. That's part of how he designed how he was going to play the role.
I mean, I assume
but because
it
seems so natural, you can't imagine that that's not how he's walking around all the time.
If you met somebody in life who behaved this way, wouldn't you just be like, what is up with you?
I met Jack Black once.
Oh, God.
And I was disappointed that he wasn't flailing about.
Aw.
He was very calm and polite and so nice, but I was waiting for him to do one of his little Jack Black things. And he was not performing, he was buying some movies. So he wasn't being that way. And I was like, he's so like low key.
Ordinary.
And I couldn't wrap my head around it. Like, was he just having a bad day? And I had to remind myself that every other time I've seen him, he's performing. And, yeah.
Jack Black is somebody that I really feel like I could be real buds with. I feel like we would actually make an interesting pair because we are both like trying to make people laugh, but we do it in such totally different ways. And I'm so much more uptight about certain things. And I feel like we'd be a real nice odd couple sort of situation.
I'm a big fan of him.
Yeah, he just seems like a good dude.
He was so nice. But I was just like, whoa, he's very still. I don't understand what's happening.
So, all right, back. We just still haven't even talked a fucking thing about this episode. Clara,
you know, I want to talk about my precious Mr. Tennant. So let's.
All
go.
right. So we go to Clara. She's teaching a class. She gets interrupted. Well, not actually. The class is over. Somebody comes in and is like, "Hey, your doctor called," and she's like, "Did he leave an address?" And she gets on a motorbike and goes down to this like fucking random abandoned area on a highway. Real sketchy spot, to be honest. And
it looks like it's straight out of Supernatural, like you're going to wait for the Crossroads demon to come out.
It looked to me like where the Doctor meets Amy and Rory with his cowboy hat. You know what I mean? It looked like that exact same spot to me. But I'm sure it's not because I think they filmed that in the U.S.
Yeah, that was in Utah.
Yeah. So she drives her motorbike right into the TARDIS, and the Doctor is like delighted to see her, but holds back for quite a while and pretends almost like she isn't even there as he's reading his little book. And
Advanced Quantum Mechanics is what he's reading.
Okay. I would like it if he was reading something a lot sillier. You know, like, what if he was reading, like, Quantum Mechanics for Dummies? You know, something that's, like, it's within his wheelhouse, but also, like, really? I would think that you would be beyond that. Maybe.
You know, he would just be fact-checking it if that were
well,
the case.
There's nothing wrong with that. I would find that amusing if he was reading it and going, this is all wrong. And it was full of scribbles for the things that he had corrected. And he asks her if she wants to go for cocktails on the moon, ancient Mesopotamia, future Mars. As usual, none of the things he suggests happen. And they are interrupted by a crane. It's a helicopter with like a lift hook. I don't know if you call that a crane. I don't know what you would call something like this.
It's kind of like the claw machine.
Oh my God, it is. Claw. And it turns out that this is a unit. And they're just like, oh, hey, sorry, we didn't know you were in there. To which I'm like, how are you folks operating a massive, like, project like this? And you just scoop the TARDIS up and do not even check if he's there.
She says something about how they're basically directed if they ever are notified of the TARDIS to scoop it up.
That does not seem like a good policy.
It doesn't, and also the TARDIS is always fucking around. And this is the first time they've ever scooped it up.
It's the TARDIS that's like fucking things. Like, the TARDIS is always fucking around. Stop it, TARDIS. Well,
it kind of is.
It is indeed.
But it's constantly in the UK. And this is the first time they've ever scooped it up. So their intel's not great.
Yeah, I just like the whole idea of just being like, oh yeah, there's this object that belongs to this like massively powerful alien being, and we've been told that anytime we see it, we should just take it. What?
Just in case.
That is a
keep it
bad
safe?
policy. Like, I just the whole rationale behind that is a mystery to me. I don't get it. But that is what is happening. So it turns out that they're at he gets dropped in front of the National Gallery where they are waiting to meet him. It seems like an odd choice to set up a meeting like this in such a hugely public space. Mm-hmm. There's a lot about the way this goes that I don't really understand, but it doesn't wind up mattering at all. So it's fine. And, first they bring him to see the, what does she call it? Like the qualifications, what is the word for the thing with Queen Elizabeth to prove that it was her? Confirmation? I don't remember the word.
I can't remember the word they used.
But yeah, so
it basically has to like verify that they have to verify that it's her letter, right?
Yeah, and that's what like the painting is supposed to be for. Right. I can't remember the word, but we'll get there. There's a moment here. First of all, this girl, who is like the assistant with the inhaler.
She's a scientist. Her name is Osgood.
Oh, did they really? They named her Osgood and they gave her the long scarf.
Yep.
Okay, fine.
The nod to the Fourth Doctor. When
he lands, the head of the operations, what is her name? Redgrave? No, that's the actual actress's name, right? Kate Stewart.
Her name is Kate Lethbridge Stewart.
Lethbridge.
Yeah, her father was his friend.
Okay.
Who ran UNIT.
She asks, what's our cover story for this? And the girl says, Darren Brown. Who is Darren Brown?
I don't know. Let me look it up.
Okay. I'm assuming that this is some sort of like, what I assume, to be honest, is that it's the UK's equivalent of what's the guy that made the Statue of Liberty disappear and shit?
Yep, you're right. He is an English mentalist, illusionist, painter, and author.
Ah. So, all right, perfect.
Like David Copperfield or, who are you thinking of? David Blaine?
That's the one, David Blaine. Yeah, and she says again, oh, we sent him flowers. So apparently they have to use his name all the time to explain weird shit that's happening. That's pretty fun, actually. I like that. David Blaine would be a really good scapegoat for shit like this, actually, now that I think about it. So they bring him in to see this painting that he says should not be here in this timeline, if I'm not mistaken. And it's this really wild 3D oil painting called No More. And the doctor, it's kind of interesting because we see his face as he's like growling no more. But once we go into the situation, it wouldn't have been his face. But in his memory, it's like it's his face because it's him to himself. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Did any of what I just said make words happen right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
He says it does not belong in this time or place.
Okay. And yeah, it's 3-dimensional. It's really fun. Like when Clara walks up to it, it does the thing that like 3D photos do on Facebook where you're scrolling by it and you just go, what? For a second because you didn't register that's what was supposed to be happening. And it's very like unnerving. And it turns out that this is the moment in time when he killed them all. And we kind of have this interesting, like, intercut as he's saying, the other me, the one I don't talk about, to the older face, John Hurt's face that we saw at the end of the last episode, and him standing there in the gallery as if he were alone for a moment. And then he is his younger self again. It kind of goes back and forth in this way that I thought was really evocative. I liked how disorienting and confusing it is. And it really gets across the idea that like, he isn't entirely in the moment right now, although he also feels tremendously in the moment because he's like so focused on this thing that he's looking at right now and the memories that go along with that. And I don't know. I just thought that worked really well. So then we see the actual battle on Gallifrey, and we get to see just how badly it's going. Is no good, kids. They are losing. And fucking Daleks, man. You know what I'm realizing lately? It's like, I don't find the Daleks that threatening. But in some ways, that's what makes it so insulting when they win all the time. Is that they feel like such a joke. And then they beat you. And it's just mean. It's like getting pwned by a 12-year-old in a comment section. Like, that's not how that was supposed to shake out. And now I look like a fool. And this is embarrassing. Except instead of embarrassing, it's lots of children dying. So, you know, worse. And there's an odd moment. The doctor shows up. And he takes this dude's gun in order to shoot the words "no more" into the wall. Mm-hmm. Why does he do this? Is it straight up because he's a drama queen? Because it feels like that's what that was. But I want to believe there was more to it than that. Because this is just, otherwise, not the time, sir.
I think he had, at that point, made the decision that he was going to have to sacrifice everyone to stop this war. This war has been going on for a really long time. And so he's a drama queen.
That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah. And then the Daleks are like, explain!
Oh my god. Fucking Daleks, man. I swear to God. I can't. Anytime that they say anything, it's so hilarious. That I think will be the one thing out of this episode that I think is pure ridiculous. That he took the time to shoot the words "no more" in a place that he is about to burn down. And where he is like talking about how this is like one of my greatest regrets and a major decision that was, that is being made with a heavy heart. But you go ahead and do this. Like, it doesn't feel like the gravitas the situation deserves, sir. Do you know what I mean?
No, but it looks really cool.
Does it? No.
I think that's what Stephen Moffat
Stephen
thought.
Moffat, you need some advice on what's cool. Just from one non-cool person to another, even I can tell this is not cool. Just find somebody who knows what cool is and like ask them next time. Because it's just kind of funny in the midst of it, where it took me out of things initially. And as we go on and you find out what like really happened here, it was sad and upsetting. And I felt like I wasn't getting that at all from this moment. This just felt like a Dick Tracy moment to me, And it was just a really odd choice to make that I don't get. I still, like, I'm watching it right now and I'm like, oh, it's even worse than I remembered. So on Gallifrey, there are these couple of men, Androgar, the general.
They're high commanders.
Okay. There are 3 on Amazon X-Ray. We've got 3 people, 2 men and a woman. The 2 men are named Androgar and the General. The woman is Time Lord. Cool. Okay.
Thanks, Moffat.
Appreciate it.
There's that misogyny sneaking in again.
And they are going up to this box, and this dude says, "The moment is gone," which is really funny also out of context, because it just feels like he was about to like tell him he loved him and then realize like, oh, now's not the time.
The moment's over.
That is not what he meant, but it really does feel, the moment's gone. Never mind. And when he says, "What is the moment?" he says, "The Galaxy Eater, the final work of Gallifrey, a weapon so powerful the operating system became sentient." And we wind up meeting the operating system later, and it is taking on the appearance of Rose Tyler. Wait, no, Bad Wolf, actually. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty fun. I thought she did a great job in this role, and she seemed to be having a blast. And
yeah,
I really enjoy watching Billie Piper grow as an actress, because she is just killing it here. And she's never been like a bad actress, but she has been significantly weaker in other episodes. I mean, and then you have like Penny Dreadful, in which she does some work that I'm just like, oh my God, just stab me in the heart. It would be less painful in a good way.
Doctor Who was her first acting job. She, before that, was a pop star, as we've discussed.
I keep forgetting that. It's so funny.
I recently listened to her on David Tennant's podcast, and she was talking about how like this was my first job, and I learned so much working on it that I had no way of knowing. Like, she'd gone to theater school. She was in theater school when she was, quote, discovered. And her whole story, I mean, I actually recommend people listen to that episode, because how she became like a pop singer was because they were looking for a pretty girl to be a pop singer. Mm-hmm. And she was like, why not? Let's give it a try. She was like 15, and she was like, sure, let's see. But she's really honest about like, I didn't know what I was doing. I learned a lot, and I've grown. And you're right. You can see how different she is, how comfortable she is, even just in her own skin a little bit more.
Definitely.
in this episode.
Yeah, it's just really fun to, and I really like the aspect of her seeming almost like, what's the word I want? She's a little bit threatening initially. And then you kind of find out that she is attempting to keep him from doing something terrible. And so the way that she comes across as threatening isn't entirely fair. It's just...
She's the ghost of Christmas past,
That's
present, and
exactly
future.
what I said to Owen. That's so funny. Yes, exactly. That is exactly what I said. That's so funny.
She's all three of them in one. So if you think about with A Christmas Carol, you've got, one of them does come across as threatening. I think it's the future one. And with her, it's more the present one is a little more threatening than the past or the future
Have you read the book?
No, but you want to know what's funny? Because I said, maybe I'll read it at Christmas and we can do a one-off where we discuss it since I've never read it.
That's right. I forgot.
But I didn't have it. And then around my neighborhood, there are all these little libraries, in front of people's houses and stuff, where you can drop off books and take books. And I stopped at one of them one day, and the only book in there that had any interest to me, and this was days after we talked about it, was that book. And so I grabbed it. So I have it now.
Oh.
And maybe we don't cover it this year because now we're a week out from Christmas, but I've got it now. So if you ever want to make me read it, I
should mention, guys, by the way, that next week is Christmas week, so there won't be an episode next week. So FYI.
Well, this one will post next week.
Yeah, but by the time people are listening to
the following week,
for them next week will not be an episode.
Yeah.
So, so in the book, to spoil a little something, if you're looking to watch a movie of The Christmas Carol that's as close to the book as possible, George C. Scott's version is, I reread the book this year and I just kept being surprised by how almost verbatim the entire script is from the book. And there is one thing that I found really interesting when reading it is that the ghost of Christmas past, while not threatening in appearance, it's actually kind of less than non-threatening. It's looks like a child. It has a vibe that makes Scrooge really uncomfortable, and it carries this cap that it can put over itself, like you would put out a candle, like a candle snuffer. And Scrooge, without really even understanding why, is like, "Hey, would you mind putting that on?" And it's like, "Wow, cool! You just want to put me out, huh? I bet you fucking do." And it says something about how it's men like him that cause it to have to carry this fucking cap around in the first place. And so it's not threatening in the future sort of sense where it's outright scary and unknowable, but it's clearly frightening to dudes like Scrooge who try and pretend that and deny their past and forget on purpose in a lot of ways. And that is kind of how Rose Tyler feels here, just haunting in a way. So yeah, this dude, we see him leaving with the sack over his shoulder, going to this abandoned barn for some reason. I don't know why this is the spot he picks, but he puts it down. He's trying to figure out how to use it. And he is he hears something outside and goes to check and see what it is. And when he turns back around, Rose is sitting on it. And he's like, "You need to get out of here," and shoves her out the door. And then he turns around and there she is again. And he's like, "Wait, what?" And it turns out that she is the interface. And she starts making fun of him, saying "no more." And honestly, that was the best part of the episode for me. She is going so hard. "No more. I heard you. No more. No more. No more." Oh my God. It was so funny. I loved it so much. So she opens up this, like, rift in time to attempt to show him what's going on. And a fez comes through. And then we go back to our present, and we're looking at this painting, and the 10th Doctor is in the painting with Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on the record saying I find Queen Elizabeth to be a riveting person in history.
Same.
And this actress did not do it for me as Queen Elizabeth at all in any way. I don't know what he was thinking casting this woman as Queen Elizabeth. She doesn't have any of the sense of, like, sternness and backbone and seriousness that I believe this woman would have in life. She is silly and goofy and easily swayed, and overall is a bit of a joke. I don't know what's going on here. Is it just him trying to defy expectations because he knows what we would expect Elizabeth to be like?
Don't ask me to try to figure out what Stephen Moffat's mind is like when it comes to women.
The whole thing about her is that she doesn't want to tie herself to a man. And she spends this whole episode talking about how excited she is to marry him.
Yeah.
And he even says, I know you're not the real Elizabeth because she would never have accepted my marriage proposal. It's like he's taunting us. And I don't mean that in a way that's like winking at us, or it feels really like, I bet you thought that. And I'm going to make you think that I considered it, but I'm going to back away from that right away, actually.
So there's this series of books. Well, it's not a series of books. There's these books written by this author named Philippa Gregory that are historical fiction, and I had started reading them because she wrote The Other Boleyn Girl. Mm-hmm. And that sort of got me... The book is okay. But at the time, I hadn't read anything else about Anne Boleyn and all of that, so I was like, wow, this is riveting, and started reading more actual historical books about Anne Boleyn and the Tudors and Elizabeth. And I kept reading her novels as well, and I realized she has such contempt for Elizabeth. And I don't. I think Elizabeth was problematic and troubled, but also incredible. Yeah. And went through a lot. And so I stopped reading her books because the way that she would write about Elizabeth was just really off-putting to me. And this feels like that he's trying to portray her as something that we all know she wasn't, as if what we know about her is a lie. Right. And that she actually did really desperately want to get married. Now, she was in love with Robert Dudley. She wanted to marry him. He wouldn't. He couldn't. He was married. Mm-hmm. But other than that, there's really no evidence of her having any inkling to marry anybody, ever. He was it. And other than that, she was like, men don't have to get married. I can rule an army and run a country and not have to have some man taking my job from me. And that's why she's amazing. It feels like you said, it's a combo of she isn't what we all have learned she is. And also what I have been complaining about, which is we need to make the Doctor irresistible to every woman all the time. Right. So she would never consider getting married, but the Doctor, for some reason, just catches her heart so completely that she's willing to, defy her entire kingdom, probably? Right. What? Really? Her rule, what is it? What do they call it? It was on a precipice. Her reign, yeah. There were people constantly looking to depose her. So getting married to just anybody was never an option for her. It always had to be political, and that's why a lot of reason why she was against it. Because she didn't want to have to do it to make ties with other countries and to solidify her place. There is in the show, the doctor does say at some point, like, yeah, I married her, and never explains it. So I feel like this was Stephen Moffat going, okay, I'm going to explain how that happened. But portraying Elizabeth in this way, like she's some flighty girl, is insulting.
It was just baffling to me once I realized that was who she was supposed to be. And when he says, you're not the real Queen Elizabeth, I got my hopes up because I was like, she sure fucking isn't. Okay. I guess that's part of the joke. And I was like relieved. And then it turned out that she definitely is. And we're just going to go with that. And it was like, you're even admitting in your script that this doesn't really make sense. But then I'm still supposed to believe it? What?
I agree that I don't like the actress either.
Yeah. Like, I feel like
There
she
had
could be
to be
good for
better
other
actresses.
roles. I don't feel like she's necessarily a bad actress, but she just doesn't work for this at all.
Did you ever, have you read, I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but have you read about Elizabeth, like about the day that she died?
Maybe, but I don't really remember.
She'd been sort of ill for a while, and she refused to lie down because she was convinced if she did, then she was going to die. And so she stood for like 3 days. She just stayed standing. She refused to lie down.
Oh, that is funny. Bitch. I mean, I guess. It sounds like it worked for a few days.
It did for a few days. She was determined. Like, no, it's not taking me.
Sounds like my fucking dad.
Kind of love her for it.
Oh, man, that's just a little too relatable. FYI, everybody, I have a low fever and probably have COVID, and yet here I am. I'm just kind of like, if I keep working, COVID can't get me.
I wish that were true. You work in your own house.
Because Owen has it, everyone, by the way. So he's finally getting over the worst of it. But yeah, he has been home for several days now. He found out he had it over the weekend. So cool. Yeah. Anyway. Everybody, for the record, Jamie is much more upset about the possibility that I may have COVID than I am.
It's true.
She is much more agitated about it. I'm just kind of like, I probably have it. And she's like, why didn't you separate yourself from Owen? And I'm just like, yeah, that's going to happen.
You wrap yourself in a bubble.
Not going to happen. Oh my God. I don't even know what Owen would do when he was like really sick these past couple days and I wasn't around. I'd have found him like dehydrated and almost at the point of death probably because he just didn't want to get up and get himself another drink. Like he needed somebody to remind him that.
That's fine, but you wear a mask when you go in to see him. You treat him like a patient.
Yeah, okay.
You gotta protect yourself.
Treat him like a patient. Sure.
I adore him.
I'm certain that there are
well.
people out there who would do that. I am not one of those people. I'll get sick and I'll get over it and it'll be fine.
I am one of those people. If my boyfriend caught it, I'd be like, all right, so masks all day. Got it.
It's just too goddamn depressing.
I'm going to sleep on the couch.
Yeah, I'm like, probably. I already have it or we'll get it in like inevitably. So let's just hope it happens sooner than later. Although at this point, it was so awful. His grandparents, like, I believe they finally at this point got tested because his grandfather came up negative. But his grandmother didn't want to get tested at all because if she came up positive, they were going to delay her chemo and she is at her deductible. And if they delayed it into next year, she wouldn't be able to afford it. because this is the way that our system works. It's super cool.
Yeah, our medical system is just fucked.
And it's like, yeah, you're definitely risking other people getting it, though, by not getting tested and just going in and acting like it's fine. But that's great, sure.
I mean, she shouldn't be around anybody at all. She shouldn't be leaving her house. She has cancer.
I mean, she's pretty much not. She's like doing pickup for groceries and stuff and going to the hospital for her treatments, and that's pretty much it. But nevertheless, it's like just wanting to bury your head in the sand and just be like, well, I probably don't have it. Like, yikes. But also I understand like being broke and afraid. So
yeah.
Anyway, so it turns out, as we find out a little bit later, they're getting a call about Queen Elizabeth, who, by the way, they cast a woman who also just doesn't look like anything like the woman in the painting. Is the other thing I had, because like the painting of David Tennant looks like David Tennant. Mm-hmm. It's probably a photo that they like altered, but nevertheless. So it's extra weird that she does not look like herself within the painting, because it's like...
Is that because a lot of people thought that they made Elizabeth more beautiful in her paintings than she was?
I mean, it's possible, but like, I wouldn't even say that the woman in the painting is more beautiful. I would just say she doesn't look like her. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
It's just...
Was she the only actress they could find with red hair?
Get a wig.
Right?
I truly don't understand it, the casting. Like, I really don't know what... I get, like, all I could think is maybe he had decided already that he wanted somebody who was able to pull off a silly, flighty vibe, and she was good at that, but it's just in such defiance of who that character should be that... Yeah. So, this guy who's, like, part of the staff, I guess, the team from UNIT, gets a call, and he looks at his phone, and then he's like, I mean, I'll do that, but why would I do that? And all the time I'm thinking, oh no, a trap. But it turns out later we find out that this phone call actually came from the doctor. And meanwhile, the doctor and Clara are being led to find out, like, further inside this weird situation where there's all this, like, sand on the floor. And all of these statues that are, like, stood against the walls underneath tarps. And later on, it turns out that the reason that there is sand on the ground is because these, like, beings needed somewhere to hide, so they, like, pulverized all the statues into dust and then took their spots under the sheets. Which, honestly, is really cool. Did you
at some point think it was the angels?
For a second, I was sort of mid-thought going, oh, is it no, they can't do that. It was a sort of like, my immediate thought when bringing up a statue was 100% the angels. And then I was like, that doesn't make sense, like right on its heels, you know?
I thought, when they're talking about, all the sand on the ground and how it's pulverized statues, I thought it was going to be revealed that the statues had been angels and the Zygons destroyed them.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't like the angels pulverized things.
Right.
Gotcha. Yeah, the factor of the Zygons having, like, being the issue now in the present day, that didn't occur to me either. When it turned out that they were, like, our issue right now, I was kind of like, oh, okay. Like, I was just really surprised by that. So they go into there's a spot where there's all of these paintings where there are supposed to be people, and there is nothing in the paintings anymore. They are just landscapes. And the doctor is realizing that, like, something happened. Something, like, came through here, because all of the glass is shattered outward as if things came out from behind the frames. Really neat concept, for the record. I really like this whole idea. And just honestly, anytime something's able to come through a painting or a mirror or something like this, I always find it really like extra creepy in a way that I enjoy. There's a moment in the Dresden Files where he says that he doesn't keep mirrors in his house because too many things can use them as mirrors, or too many things can use them as windows, even doors. And I remember the first time I read that and just being like, ugh, like, ooh, hate that. Cool. So this is when the rift opens up on his end, and he, I think, remembers this moment happening. And so he sees the fez that he had just grabbed from a display and puts it together that he's supposed to throw it through and test this out. And then he jumps through himself, and there he is with the 10th Doctor and John Hurt. Well, I think John Hurt isn't there right away, right? Yeah, because it's
John
just
Hurt's
the two
not there
Elizabeths. Mm-hmm. He says the Doctor's wearing sand shoes with a great deal of contempt.
Okay. There was actually trivia about this.
Thank you.
So
I need to know.
Because I was like, sand shoes? I know he wears Converse, so what are they talking about? Sand shoe is a primarily Scottish or Australasian word for a sneaker. The implication in the scene is that the 10th Doctor thought they were shoes meant for running, whereas his other selves thought they were walking shoes.
Oh, okay. I mean, I don't really get that joke. Like, I feel like, is that a joke that other people understand? Because that doesn't feel like it's obvious to anybody.
I wonder if it's a joke specifically targeted to David Tennant because he's Scottish, but he doesn't play Scottish on the show.
Huh. Okay. I see what you mean. I would be interested to hear about that. Because, yeah, this is one that I'm never against making fun of the Doctor for something he's wearing. I'm always here for that. But it was such a specific thing that I have never heard before. And it was just sort of like, what is it that they keep talking about? Okay. Because that's like barely even a joke. It's like, oh, you think they're for running and I think they're for walking. What? Really? Is that worth this? I guess.
And it's not like the 11th Doctor wears shoes that are for running.
Yeah, I mean...
He wears little boots.
Just overall, I don't feel like any of them has a leg to stand on making fun of what the other iterations of themselves are wearing, pretty much. They each have a goofy choice.
Especially since that was you.
Right? But maybe that is also supposed to be the joke, that none of them really should be saying shit about the other, and they all do anyway. So they try and close this like rip in time, and this is when the other Doctor comes through. But he doesn't like to be called the Doctor because he doesn't consider himself a doctor. But then later he does consider himself a doctor. But also he's told that he won't remember any of this.
Yeah, well, this is where we get into the tricky thing of time travel and their aging. So the War Doctor, which is what he's referred to, did this thing. And then he changes into the 9th Doctor and buried most of what he did. Just made himself forget.
Okay.
And forget about being that guy completely. He knows that he was the last survivor of the Time War. And he's alluded to the fact that he did something. But he never talks about it. And the implication here is because he doesn't remember that he did it.
Okay.
He's buried that incarnation of himself so deeply that he doesn't even remember what he did.
Oh.
Or that guy existed.
All right. So I have a question about a part of the script then, because there's a part where Clara is talking to the War Doctor. Because we can't even call him... What is he, 8?
Well, no. Technically, he's not. And here's where things are, how this character was created out of necessity. The original draft of the script for this show, for this episode, this was all supposed to be the Ninth Doctor that did this.
Oh.
And Christopher Eccleston declined coming back.
Of course he did. What a contrary...
He did not have a good experience working on the show. He doesn't have terrible things to say about it. He's a very classy person. He doesn't go into detail, but he didn't have a great experience. And so when Stephen Moffat came to him and said, I've written this part for 9, we want to have you back, he declined. Now, what Stephen Moffat says is it was one thing to include him among all the other archive doctors as they flew in to save the day. In fact, it would have been disgraceful to have left anyone out. But placing him... Oh, this is about the scene at the end and also when the War Doctor turns into 9. You kind of see his face start to change, but you don't see it completely. He says, placing him in that scene might have given the impression that he'd actually turned up for filming, which would have been crossing a line. Not taking a part in the 50th was a difficult decision for Chris, taken after a lot of thought and with great courtesy, and not respecting his wishes would have been grossly unprofessional and disrespectful to a good man and a great doctor. Number 9 may not have turned up for the celebrations, but there would have been no party without him. So he wrote this doctor that none of them think about as a way to tell the story he wanted to tell.
Okay.
Because he couldn't have it be the Ninth Doctor as he'd originally conceptualized it. And I feel like I like this episode and I like John Hurt in that role and I like what this means for the psychology of the doctors that we've known up to this point because they were so torn apart by what happened in the Time War. Mm-hmm. But I'm also really curious what this would have been like with Christopher Eccleston.
Yeah. Oh, man. I really want to know what the hell the deal was with him, having such a bad experience.
I don't know. I've been curious about it. And he started talking more recently about the show. He, for the longest time, never even really said... He didn't say anything. People would ask, and he would turn down, offers to go to... conventions, specifically for Doctor Who or Doctor Who related, he would always turn it down. Last year, he went to his first convention in the capacity of representing Doctor Who, ever. So whatever happened, he's starting to get over it, but he still hasn't talked about it, and I think that's because he doesn't want to air all that, whatever that dirty laundry is. It's not for public consumption. It happened. He wasn't happy. He left. And he's professional enough to leave it at that.
God, I'm so curious.
I know. There's two Hollywood stories that I just would love to know what actually happened. And that's one of them. And the other one is on the show The Good Wife. There was Juliana Margulies, who's the star of the show, and then there was this woman named Archie Punjabi who played an investigator, and their characters were really close and then had a falling out on the show. But apparently they had such a falling out in real life that they were never again, and that happened season 2. The show went on for 7 seasons. They were never again in a scene together.
Wow.
And in the last season... there's a scene of those two characters together, but it was shot separately and then pieced together. And I desperately want to know what happened between these two women that they would not be in the same room together.
Somebody fucked somebody's husband or something like that. That's the kind of thing that I'm just that's when you don't trust yourself to not get violent with a person if you're in their presence kind of thing. And
yeah,
I feel like that's the sort of thing that would lead to, yikes.
It's just one of those mysteries where I'm like, I want to know so bad.
Shit. Yeah, I can't imagine having a job either where I'm allowed to be that high maintenance. where I'm just like, I really don't like this bitch, so I'm going to need you to film us separately and then cut us together.
Yeah.
What? Damn.
Well, Juliana Margulies was also a producer on the show, so she probably had a lot to say.
Wow.
The other one that's similar is that Lena Headey and the guy who played Braun had a relationship at one point in their lives and now cannot stand each other. And she refused to do any scenes with him. And that's why if you watch Game of Thrones, you never see a scene with Cersei and Braun because she would not be in the same room as him. She didn't have any issue with him being on the show, but she was like, I won't do scenes with him. I won't be in the room with him.
Shit. Oh, that's fun. Because, like, if there's anybody who, as an actor, I would have guessed would have, like, a really bitter ex in their past, it would absolutely be Braun. The actor who plays Braun. He is just the kind of guy that I feel like, yeah.
And it must have been really bad because she is, like, the complete opposite of Cersei. Like, she's fun and genuinely a good person and, like, just so lovely to everyone. So it must have been bad for her to be like, no scenes with him.
Huh. Well, I feel bad because I really liked Eccleston as a doctor.
I did too, and it would have been incredible to see him back.
And having him be the one who's, like, grappling with this decision, really, his acting is so good that I feel like it would have taken this to another level. Not to say that John Hurt isn't good, but you don't have the history with him, so it feels very different and sort of alien. Pun intended.
Well, and the Ninth Doctor, for those 13 episodes or 12 episodes that he was on the show, was grappling with what was done in the Time War.
Right.
Like, very much grappling with it. So it makes perfect sense that he was the one who did this. And it's just a shame that we don't get to see that. And I really like John Hurt in this role. I think he does a spectacular job.
I can't get over how much he looks like Ian McKellen. Like, every scene, I just kind of was like, Gandalf? Oh, no, it's not Gandalf. Gandalf? Nope, it's not him. It's not him, Natasha. Like, it just kept happening over and over again. All right, so we have got to speed things up because how long have we been recording now? An hour and a half, and we are approximately 30 minutes into this hour and a half episode. Not even. So we have them getting to know each other, and they, like, both seem to be aware of who he is and what he did, even though they have, like, made themselves forget. They recognize his iteration for who he is. And in the meantime, back on Earth, in the present, we've got these Blorgons taking over from underneath, same thing, from underneath the tarps, shape-shifting into the staff from UNIT. And we find out eventually that the woman with Clara has already been taken over. She is not... She's not Kate. Yeah, she's not Kate, and Kate is, like, not dead, which I did kind of expect to be the case. I don't know why I expected that, because they don't really love to kill people on this show often.
Well, and we've already seen in previous scenes that they replicated Elizabeth, and Elizabeth wasn't dead, so there was no reason to think that
that's true.
That Kate would be dead, but I thought the same thing. Like, oh, I forgot that they killed her.
Yeah.
Oh, no, they didn't kill her. Okay.
It's just, like, such a thing, such a trope that when there is somebody who replicates another person, they cover their tracks by eliminating the other person. Or they have to kill in order to accomplish the replication. You know? Like,
that's how it is in Terminator.
Right. Exactly. Something like that. Mistborn has a creature that has to, like, eat the corpse of another creature in order to take on its shape. Yeah. But so I just sort of assumed that. And then later on, when she finds her webbed to the wall, by the way, in a particularly horrifying bit that I hated, Oh my God, I hated it so much. She's like grabbing at this like red sticky looking webbing, and like once she's handling it, it's clear it's not actually sticky. It looks like it is, but it's not. But I was just like, if I were this girl, I would never be putting my hands anywhere near that shit. I don't know what that does. I would be like, hold on, let me go get some gloves and a blowtorch and we will try and sort this out. But I'm never going to touch any of this. So it may be a second. But luckily for her, this girl is not as hesitant or maybe cautious and wise as I am. So the gentlemen, the doctors, they all get gripped up by Elizabeth's guards, and you think for sure that this Elizabeth is Blorgon Elizabeth, but she is not. She is actual Elizabeth, which makes it very awkward and terrible later on when the doctor accuses her of not being the real Elizabeth because she has breath that would stun a horse and her eyes are far too close together. As someone who has recently talked about wearing a mask and almost stunning myself with my own breath, I felt attacked and I did not appreciate it. So they are in the Tower of London, which is in the present day where this lady's office is. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of a weird thing where they're like still in there when Clara busts through. I didn't understand how this like time jump happened.
Well, because when she's with Kate, or the fake Kate, they're down in the Black Archive, and they come across the vortex manipulator, which had belonged to Captain Jack
Sparrow.
Not Sparrow. But now my brain won't pull his name. Captain Jack. And Clara, what the doctor is doing is scratching the code into the wall so that Clara can figure out where to transport herself to.
Oh, okay. Got you. Right. So, and this is when she gets overtaken by the Blorgon. Kate finds out that she's really not who she thought, and then dips out and disappears. Right. I do love, too, that they are thinking so hard about how they're going to, like, melt a castle wall. And then she's just like, the door wasn't locked. That was honestly pretty funny. They're congratulating themselves on how clever they are. And then it's like, you didn't think to just check if the door was locked? I sure didn't. My bad. And where do we go next? I'm trying to find the spot because we sort of skipped around as we've been talking about certain things.
Well, there's a whole conversation between the three doctors about the war doctor asking if his future selves ask the question that he needs to know, how many children died on Gallifrey that day?
Right.
And the 11th Doctor's like, I have no idea. He says he's forgotten the events of that day, and then he adds that he's so old he can't even remember his proper age anymore, but he guesses he's 1,200 years old, which makes him 400 years older than the war doctor. But the 10th Doctor is all pissed off, like, how could you ever forget something as important as 2.47 billion people, or children, that died on the planet that day? Which
I think is a fair question.
Right.
And we know why, but yeah.
The moment Rose Tyler explains to the War Doctor that the 10th Doctor has become the man who regrets, and the 11th, the man who forgets. And they are his future.
They are your future. Dramatic point.
So then they're talking about the sonic screwdriver and how it's useless on wood, and they're trying to come up with calculations on how to, they're the same software, different cases, these screwdrivers. Mm-hmm. So maybe if we put them all together, We can blast our way out of here. And that's when Clara shows up.
Yeah, that was just a good bit. I do like, so the Doctor who regrets and the Doctor who forgets. I'm not sure that I felt like I could definitely see 11 as being the Doctor who forgets. Is the Doctor who regrets what you feel about 10?
A bit, yeah.
I feel like it's because I think that some like themes in that way are the kind of thing that really only become clear on a rewatch. So I don't really feel one way or another. It doesn't entirely resonate with me, but it might, if I were to go back and rewatch some stuff.
I think it's pretty accurate. I think that the Ninth Doctor was a little bit more the one who regrets because he was the one who had just recently experienced a Time War. And I feel like the 10th Doctor was a lot angrier than, like, 9 was he wasn't really angry, but he was in this weird place. But 10 was definitely angrier and got angrier as time went on.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I think that comes from the fact that he regrets a lot of what he's done. Because, it gets all the way to that point of the Time Lord Victorious where he, saves these people from Mars who were supposed to die. And he's not supposed to do that. And that's because he feels like it doesn't fucking matter what I do. I can make these choices because I have this power. And this moment that's happening, this time for him, it's after the waters of Mars and before he then turns into 11. So he's definitely in a point at this moment where he's very regretful of a lot of what he's done.
Okay. That makes sense. So when they are sort of escaping is too strong a word, I think, because Elizabeth is literally right there. When they're basically being given the grand tour, Elizabeth is like telling them all of her plans and everything. And the Doctor is like, this is really weird. Why would you tell us all of this when we're just like, we're not even imprisoned anymore. There's no reason to like let us out and then share all of this. And she's like, well, funny you should ask. I'm not a Blorgon. I am actually Elizabeth. But thank you for insulting me for a straight 5 minutes just before I got to tell you that part. Cool. Also, I still want to marry you for some reason. Sure she does. Sure she does.
Because he's so handsome.
I mean, he's a very attractive young man.
Great hair.
He does have good hair. I'll give him that. So, yeah, and what does she say? My twin is dead in the forest. I am accustomed to taking precautions. And she pulls this knife off of her, like, thigh holster. These Zygon creatures never even considered that it was me who survived, which typifies the arrogance of their kind. And Clara says Zygons, and she says men, which I say that's a pretty good line. I actually like that. I may have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but at the time, so did the Zygon. So yeah, she's like in the present, just as Queen Elizabeth. And I don't like. Was she captured in that painting that he was in with her?
In the present.
What?
They're still in the past.
They're still in the past? Oh, right, because they're creating the capsules for themselves to get into. I forgot about that. Okay, yeah. I'm getting all of my timelines mixed up. Because the Earth is right now, we're accustomed to a certain level of comfort. So they're basically like, y'all are too primitive. We need some Netflix and some better wine and some, safety standards on our workplace before we actually settle down here. So we jump to the Doctor and her getting married and this weird long kiss that happens that makes both the other doctors extremely uncomfortable, which I think is fair. And then they get into the TARDIS and take off, or he does. 10 does. Oh, and I wanted to mention too, I like seeing all the Doctors together, and I also like seeing the TARDISes like set up next to each other as well, and seeing like how different they all look from each other, you know?
They all do get into his TARDIS.
Right, they all follow him in. He runs in ahead in a very like, I'm just trying to get away from my bride sort of moment.
Yeah.
I love how she's just getting married with him like outside the castle grounds with no other people from her time except the priest, and everybody's fine with this. Okay. But yeah, all three of the TARDISes together, like the shade of blue has changed a lot more than I noticed.
I don't think I noticed that.
It's very like gray. The older ones, yeah, just like not quite as rich a navy. And it might just be that they are worn, you know, but who knows? The friction confabulator. Oh, God. Okay. Oh, and then they each comment on the redecoration of the inside of the TARDIS. And 10 does not appreciate the changes that 11 has made.
No.
So we go to the Doctor calling the gentleman from UNIT and realizing exactly what it is the Doctor's planning on doing, which is they're all going to be frozen inside that painting in the way that the Blorgons are frozen inside the other paintings. So if this boy moves the painting to the Tower of London, which is where they're all going to be, then they can jump out and be there with everybody momentarily. Yep. And it works a treat. It's exactly how it happens. I am always, like I said, the idea of like people hiding in paintings and whatnot, good idea. And especially when your good guys, your protagonists are able to make use of that as well, even better. I like it when you can turn something that is kind of creepy but useful to your own advantage as a good guy character. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The reason that they have to do this is because the Tower of London has been made TARDIS-proof to prevent the Doctor interfering.
I love how when they're all like talking about this and arguing about this, the War Doctor is like, "We don't have to land," and he's like, "What are you fucking talking about? Yes, we do." And they get so like angry and disrespectful with each other at just the drop of a hat. The Doctor really detests himself, it feels. You know?
Well, he thinks he's the smartest person in the room, and then there's these other hymns that are also thinking that they're the smartest person in the room.
It's very funny. I mean, Jamie, if you were to like be surrounded by other versions of yourself, would you get competitive with yourself?
No, I'd probably get really irritated.
Today, not feeling well, and Owen is feeling a lot better, and we were sitting on the couch, and we had ordered pizza, and I really wanted the grated cheese that was on the coffee table, but I had a cat on my lap. So I was just about to forfeit the cheese because I'm not giving the cat up so that I can reach the cheese. And then I asked Owen, because he was starting to lean forward, "Hey, would you grab me the cheese?" Honestly unsure if he would say yes or no, because he wasn't leaning that far forward, and he also had a cat, and maybe he couldn't reach. And if I were with other versions of myself, I would know that the other version of myself, were I to say, "Hey, could you pass me the cheese?" would be like, "No, I have a cat." And I'd be like, "Well, thanks for not being helpful at all." And
why are your cats on your laps while you're trying to eat your food?
They sit on my like shins. That's where Ripley always sits, because she's too fat to like be a lap cat. Really, she doesn't fit. So yeah, she like I have the kind of couch that has like footrests that go up, like a armchair. So I put the footrest up, and she always sits on my my footrest section against my shins or like between my feet. And that is sort of where she lives.
Got it.
So yeah, that's where she's at while I am eating my pizza. Delicious, delicious pizza with grated cheese on it, after all. So what I'm saying is, I don't think I would get like competitive with myself so much as realize that the things that I don't want to do are exactly the things that my other selves would also not want to do. And so I'm not getting any help from their quarter. That's not happening.
Yeah.
So we go to the like weird moment where there's this standoff between Kate and the Blorgon who wants like to get this weapon. And she's like, I will let London explode.
Not just London. She's willing to sacrifice the entire human race.
Oh, wait, is she? I thought it was just
Yeah.
London and she was saving, like, the world.
Well, it's a nuclear device. So, I mean, I guess it's just London, but I got the impression that it was, like, big enough that it was going to affect more than just this one little space.
Ew. My bad. Yeah, that is not how I read that at all. Because I feel like they say that a couple times. Like, she's like, yeah, I would sacrifice London to save billions more.
Okay.
You know? But she, like, it's this thing that's just very similar to the way the doctor was operating when he was making his decision. And, he is trying to urge her not to do it because he thinks this is something that she will regret forever. And she thinks that the math is undeniable, which, I mean, I understand her point there. And in some ways it is undeniable, but also yikes at having to like be in the position to make this sort of decision in the first place. I'm glad I never have to come up with these kinds of like solutions, and I put solutions in quotations. I'm glad to not have that responsibility. But yeah, the doctor is basically like all the other two are saying, we know what it is like to live with this, and we are going to stop you from making this mistake because we can't stop ourselves from having made this mistake. And it's sort of funny because he keeps saying you won't be able to live with yourself. And I'm like, well, she's going to blow up too. So she won't have to live with herself. Like that's part of the deal. But that's also what, the Rose Bad Wolf interface says to the war doctor when he's like, I don't expect to survive this. And she's like, oh, well, that's going to be your punishment, is that you'll live. And that definitely gives him pause. And he's just like, wait, what? That's not what I signed up for. I don't like that. So the doctors, in plural, come up with this alternative solution here, which is we're going to erase the memory. Well, not erase, but like temporarily fuck up the memory of everybody in this room so that they can't remember if they are Zygons or humans. And then enter into negotiations. And because neither of you will really know what side you're fighting for, it'll be a perfect negotiation where you're going to argue each side. Like, you are going to be more cooperative because there's a chance that's you that this is affecting.
Right.
Which I think is actually a pretty neat idea. I like that.
Yeah.
And yet, there is a moment with a girl who has the inhaler where one of her is like coughing and the other hands her the inhaler and sort of winks and puts a finger to her lips. And that to me indicated that one of them knew whether she was human or not, and now they both know.
Yeah.
Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Which is which?
I think the one with the inhaler we're supposed to believe is the human one. And she's doing something nice for the one who has copied her.
Oh. Huh. Interesting.
She's not in on the negotiations anyway, so it doesn't really... I guess it ultimately doesn't matter unless the one who now is like, oh, so I'm Zygon. Okay, cool. So then goes over there and tries to influence the Zygon side. But then wouldn't know which one of them was a Zygon, so it doesn't really matter.
True. Yeah, I was just a little bit, because I really expected that to, like, be something a little bit later. I thought that there was going to be a moment of, like, oh my God, they actually did know, and they're orchestrating this whole thing. But I couldn't tell.
I think they just wanted to show that she was nice.
Okay. All right. I mean, I'm not against that. That's fine. So then we go to the actual moment, because Clara has a moment with the war doctor. He is talking to Rose, and she can't see Rose, and turns back around. The war doctor's gone. And a part in the script that I was mentioning earlier that I wanted to bring up is Clara says to him, the doctor is he's always talking about that day and what he had to do. He never does. What is that?
I don't know. I mean, she says that she figures he hasn't done the thing yet because her doctor always talks about that the day he wiped out the Time Lords, and the pain of making that decision is in both the eyes of both the 10th and 11th Doctors, but not in his eyes. And we've never seen him tell her.
No.
I guess that doesn't mean that he hasn't, but to say that he's always talked about that day, when I think he's maybe, like, realistically, he's probably said, like, you know, we can't go to Gallifrey because I wiped it out to save the rest of the universe. I don't know. We're just supposed to assume that these conversations have happened. We've never, I don't think a single time with Clara have we seen the conversation we've seen multiple times before with other companions.
It's just like, we actually saw the moment where John Hurt turns up and she's like beginning to pass out, and the doctor actively won't talk about what this guy did.
Yeah.
And so for her to suddenly be like, oh, he talks about it all the time. I'm like, maybe
we're supposed to assume he's talked about it since then.
Yeah. And it just doesn't like, especially if he's the doctor who forgets.
Right.
I don't really see how this is like a theme with him, that he's going to bring it up all the time. It just didn't, like, that was a line that totally did not need to be there and undermines a bunch of stuff. And it's just a weird choice that I feel like if you just left that out, we wouldn't be having this conversation at all. It would be fine.
I wonder if it's in there so that later on, when they're all in that moment on Gallifrey, including Clara, when she is like, you don't have to do this, there has to be another way, that it gives a reason. I mean, that would have worked without this scene, though. Mm-hmm. Because she's a fully outside perspective. So, yeah, I don't know why it's in there.
But, yeah, and this moment is when he gets pulled back into the barn with Bad Wolf, and it looks like he's going to do it. He seems to have, like, come to this conclusion that this is the right thing to do because of the conversation that he had with Clara, it feels like, but I'm not entirely sure why that conversation made him feel, like, ready. Because that's the word he uses. He's like, I'm ready. And I didn't really understand what about that interaction made him feel, like, more confident about making this decision. But both the other doctors turn up at the same time. And basically what they are prepared to do is go through with it, but be there with him when it happens so that he doesn't have to make the decision by himself. And they are sort of like, in their mind, this is a terrible thing that we're going to have to live with, but there isn't an alternative that we can see that makes sense and will work. And so we are willing to shoulder the burden of this, like, terrible thing if that's what it takes. Like, that's the kind of sacrifice that they're making. Which honestly, I really did like that idea, but yeah.
The reason that he is ready is because he seen how what he says is extraordinary men that they've become, and they can't be that if he doesn't do this.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, honestly, that kept occurring to me when she's just like, this is what you'll become. And I was like, I mean, this doesn't seem terrible. Why are you using this foreboding voice? It doesn't feel like foreboding to me.
So we hear the TARDIS, and she says that that sound brings hope to everyone who hears it. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, it does. And she's like, right, anyone. Like you.
Dodo bird.
Dummy.
And, yeah, that is when they turn up. So, we get another flashback to him machine gunning no more into the wall. I did not need to be reminded of that. And all of a sudden, they all come to the same conclusion. Really, it's 10 that comes up with it first. And Rose/Bad Wolf, it's like she couldn't directly tell him what his options were. Once he begins to get it and the others get it, it seems like she knew this was a choice, an option out there. But for some reason, she couldn't simply be like, do this.
No, he has to come to the conclusion himself.
Why?
So she's this device called the moment, and for him, the biggest moment of all of his lives is this decision that he makes. And it seems that her whole purpose is to maybe allow him the possibility of not making this decision. But she can't tell him what to do. She just has to show him why there are, or that there are other options.
Okay.
So that the moment that they're in, that he's in, can possibly be different.
Okay. I can deal with that. So what it is that they're all together, which means that they have more ability and power at their disposal than they would by themselves. And I love when one of them says if the Daleks had thought of it, they would already be calling for backup. And they are going to use it's a combination of all of their brains put together and also all of the time that is going to pass between 11 and War Doctor to do the calculations necessary to create a pocket universe to stick Gallifrey in. And they are going to basically pull it out of existence in an instant so that the Daleks all shoot themselves, and then it will look as if it was like a weird accident, like Gallifrey just never existed and they all just got in a firefight with one another.
Yeah. So they basically pull Gallifrey, or the city, it's Arcadia, because the planet still exists, but they basically put it in stasis like those paintings.
Oh, they only moved the city?
I mean, the planet's still there, right?
I don't think so, because it looked like that's the only way that the Daleks managed to shoot each other, was because there's a whole planet that just vanishes.
Okay, I thought that just everything around them was taken, but the physical planet. But you're probably right.
I think it's because he says later, am I supposed to go looking for Gallifrey? He doesn't say Arcadia.
Yeah, that's true. I can't picture. I watched this yesterday, and I can't picture that scene of what the Daleks looked like after everything disappeared.
It's a really quick moment. I was actually kind of surprised because I expected that to be played a little bit more triumphant of like, haha, look at these clowns shooting themselves now. Stop hitting yourself. Stop hitting yourself. But instead, it was much more like perfunctory and like, whoop, there they go. Okay, next scene. And I did think that there was going to be a bit more, like they show them exploding. It's not like there aren't like special effects and everything. There's just, they don't linger on it the way I sort of thought they might.
The site that I get my like stuff from says when Gallifrey vanishes, a sphere of Dalek ships surrounding the planet and firing constantly will be exterminated in their own crossfire. So I guess it is that they were like in space. I was just thinking about the ones on the ground, and I just can't picture what that scene looked like.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, if there are ones on the ground, then are they still in Gallifrey? The frozen Gallifrey? I feel like they would have to be. Like, yikes. That sucks. We saved you from the ones on the outside, but there's definitely still like a ground war going on. Sorry about that. And yeah, he is like in contact with the general, asking whether or not they have permission to do this. And eventually, as it's clear things are getting really bad out there, the general is just like, all right, if you really think you can do it, carry on. Let's give it a shot. So yeah, they manage it, and our dudes go, there's a moment in which, all 12 of the doctors show up on the little like screens, and it's supposed to be, I think, that they all helped with like the calculations. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah.
And kind of trying to jump forward here. Okay, so that is successful, and then that is like part of how they all wound up in that painting also.
There's a flash of the next Doctor, too.
Right. Because he says all 12 of them, and somebody says no 13, and then we get to see Eyebrows Man, which is what I shall call him. They each have their own thing. We've got the hair, we've got the ears, we've got the chin, and this one is the eyebrows. Really, the ears, in my opinion, should really be the neck, but nobody seems to agree with me on that, so I'll go for the ears.
Oh my god, I have to find a screen cap. There's this guy that was on The Bachelorette, and I've never seen a neck like this. It's like a fucking tree trunk, and I need you to see it.
Is that, I can't tell if that's good or bad.
Well, I was completely like, ugh. But then I thought, I wonder what Natasha would think about this guy's neck. So I'll have to find a picture of him and send it to you.
Yeah, I wonder. Because, like, I wouldn't consider myself, like, a neck aficionado specifically. It's just when a neck is good, it's very, very good. You know?
Did you feel this way about Eccleston in The Leftovers, too?
No.
With the neck?
No. Because he is not dressed the way the Doctor, like, the Doctor's in his leather jacket, which accentuates that old neck. And also I remembered him from Elizabeth, where he had the butt. Although it might have been a stunt double. So, but he definitely had, if it was not a stunt double, an ass and a half, ladies and gentlemen. That was a thing of beauty. So yeah, that is, I think that I was still like dealing with the thirst from that. So, okay.
So there's this moment before they do all of this where the War Doctor's like, oh, I could just kiss that bad wolf girl. And the 10th Doctor is like, wait, what?
Yeah.
When this first aired, that infuriated me.
You were so mad. I bet you were.
So mad.
I bet you weren't the only one, too.
I don't know. I would like to hear feedback, because I just always loved the Doctor and Rose, or 10 and Rose, and for them to not even be able to interact with each other just was so... It's like blue balls. Like, what the fuck are you doing to me?
Rose. It would have been so much worse for him to see somebody who looks like Rose and is like not Rose.
You're right. And I know that now. And now I would probably be like, no, like now I'm like, no, this makes sense. And it actually doesn't make me mad at all. But back then it was like the idea, like seeing that she was in the show and that he was in the show after they'd both been gone for so long. And for them to not have any interaction, I was like, well, you're just wasting my time here. I was very salty about it. And I was wrong, and I admit I was wrong, because this is actually a really good episode.
I have to assume, though, that, like, the fandom felt that way as well. Because there is nothing that people get salty about, like shipping. And after all this, and probably seeing that she's going to be in the special, everybody had, like, some expectations, I'm sure.
Yeah, there was a rumor that she was playing Rose Tyler. Mm-hmm. And that the 10th Doctor's involvement in this episode would take place during the events of the second season. But then she's not. She's playing the moment with the look of Rose Tyler.
Right.
And the Doctor, where he's at in his timeline, is between the waters of Mars and the end of time.
And it's like, it doesn't entirely makes sense that she would choose the look of Rose Tyler for the Doctor who hasn't even met her yet. So, you know, it really is. They just wanted to bring Billie Piper back, and that's fine. I'm not mad at them for that.
No, not at all. I'd rather them bring her back for this than not bring her back at all. Because I feel like she was so important to the show, and they couldn't bring back all the companions. That would have been too much, I think. Mm-hmm. But bringing back her, when she was the one who first traveled with the 9th Doctor and then traveled with the 10th Doctor, just makes sense.
So mad that Donna doesn't remember him.
I don't even want to think about it.
Every now and then I just get so sad. It's so sad. You guys. Why? Ugh. Okay.
So basically, they save Gallifrey.
They save Gallifrey. Everybody goes back to their respective places. Then 11 is by himself, thinking about how he could be a curator and retire. And there's a voice that says, I think you just might. And he's like, what? And then he looks up, and there is a man who is obviously significant, whom I did not know who he was. And then I was like, okay, this probably is an old Doctor.
It's the 4th Doctor.
Okay. So yeah, I had no idea who this was, and I was just like, why? At first I was like, is this supposed to be him old? They don't get old. Does that happen? I guess he could get old if he doesn't, like, get killed, in quotes.
The thing that I didn't understand about this, because I believe it is supposed to be the 4th Doctor, or, well, I don't know. These notes say that he sees a very familiar face standing next to him, an old man who greatly resembles the 4th Doctor. He tells him he never forgets a face, and the old man replies that he knows he doesn't, and that he might find himself revisiting some of them in the future, but just the old favorites. I don't know if this was supposed to be the 4th Doctor, because it doesn't make sense. He didn't, when he regenerates into the 5th Doctor, it's not like he was this old. It's almost like they just really, really wanted to have Tom Baker back.
Yeah.
Because he's so beloved. And I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I guess. Like, I'm okay with it. I don't care. Because I don't... You know why I don't care? Because I don't have any attachment to that Doctor.
Right.
So, people who do, like, weigh in on how you felt about this. Is it supposed to be the 4th Doctor somehow? Or is it just supposed to be like a doppelganger? Somebody who just looks like a lot like him? How do you feel about it? Were you just excited to see him? Whatever.
Yeah, because like I would have liked a little bit of like, I don't know. I just, as somebody who hasn't seen any of the others and doesn't know the references, it's difficult for me whenever something like this comes up that isn't really explained in any way.
Yeah.
It's just, I can sense, obviously, that this is supposed to be really significant, but I don't have anything to go on as to what the deal is, except like, oh, this is an old one. But yeah, because of the way the dialogue goes, it didn't really make sense to me. Like you said, revisiting old favorites. And I was like, is he trying to suggest that he turns back into this doctor eventually? Like, because, and this is like a future doctor that he's seeing that has allowed himself to like retire? Because he says, I just think you might, as if he himself is the curator here. And I think he is introduced as a curator before that person takes off. So he's like just got a job, and which is part of the joke with him and Clara in an earlier dialogue about how he has a job and she can't buy that he has a job.
This says, as to whether or not he truly is an incarnation of the Doctor from the future, the curator simply teases the thought, who knows, eh? And with a tap of his nose, he turns and walks away.
That's it?
So, yeah, like, there's no real explanation. The 11th Doctor concludes that he has a mission of a lifetime. He must find Gallifrey and return it and all its people to the universe. And then we see that scene of him when he's like dreaming that he's standing alongside all the other versions of himself. Mm-hmm. And it ends on that.
I'm trying to play it so that I can get to that spot, and Amazon's telling me that I don't have this video. What? I just paid for this. What are you talking about? It's just saying video unavailable. Well, fuck.
That's weird.
All right, I guess I'm not going to be actively following that.
That's the end, though. Like, there's...
Well, I just wanted to see, like, because they have to have, like, a silhouette of somebody who looks like Eccleston, right?
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mostly see him, like, because when it's sort of coming in on all this, like, you know, line of all these doctors, they're from far away. And then as you get closer, it's more from behind.
Right.
Probably because for all of them, you know, so it didn't look super pieced together. You mostly see them from behind.
Right. Yeah, I thought, it is such an odd thought about all of them being the same person, and yet having, I'm sure, a lot of judgments about how the others lived their respective lives or their decisions and whatnot. I just, I have a lot of judgments against my younger self without having, like, gotten a whole new body and everything, so I can only imagine. It seems fraught. But, yeah, I like the concept of this, and I like the idea that he's going to go into the next season, like, trying to find Gallifrey. Like, honestly, him not being the only Time Lord alive, I feel like could be kind of interesting, and I don't know if they're actually going to go with that, or if they're just putting it out there and then they're going to kind of drop it. But I would like it if other Time Lords got thrown into the mix a bit more. Just personally speaking.
So when pre-production on this special began, Jenna Coleman was the only cast member who was under contract to appear.
Which one's Jenna Coleman?
That's Clara.
Oh, okay.
As a result, Stephen Moffat began working on a story which would have only her, and tentatively named it The No Doctors, just in case no other doctors were available. As if that was ever going to happen.
The No Doctors. Sir, that's what you could come up with. Day without a doctor. Universe without Earth without a doctor. The doctor is out. I mean, come on. The No Doctors. Jesus Christ.
In a complete Doctor Who 50th anniversary special draft, the War Doctor calls himself the Renegade.
I think War Doctor works better.
Yeah.
It's like Wario. Right? No?
I have no experience with the character of Wario in the Mario games.
I mean, you don't
know what he's like.
Really need it. It's just sort of like the brand.
Sure.
Right? I don't know.
Sure. I like the War Doctor. Because I had complicated feelings about this special originally, I sort of was like, ugh, whatever, I don't care. I really like John Hurt, but otherwise, who cares? But now, like, I get it. I really understand the story that was being told here, and I really like him in the role. I'm glad he did it. It seems like a really big get to get John Hurt.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder if he was like Tenet, where he was a huge fan and just super excited to be like part of it, or if he had never ever seen it before.
Maybe if you bought the whole season, you could watch all those extras and just say.
This is one of those things that I'm 100% certain, were I to buy the season, I would get spoiled so badly. I bet that they are not careful about that at all.
Yeah. So we do have one review.
Hey!
It is Love This 5 stars by RTTCS Guy from the US. I look forward every Thursday to this Unspoiled podcast. I thought I was the only person living in Texas to watch Doctor Who. Happily, I'm wrong. I love Natasha and Jamie's insight as they visit episodes I haven't seen in a few years. Keep them coming.
Hey, thanks! Well, we'll be keeping them coming at least for now.
Yeah.
So, yes. Will do. But yeah, appreciate that. Really do. And it's so funny. Like, I know how many people feel like Texas is just not friendly to geeks, to leftists and whatnot. But we're out here. We're quieter because we're afraid a lot of the time. But we're here. Whether we want to be or not, we are here.
You're there, and you don't all live in Austin.
Indeed.
This says that the 11th Doctor calls the 10th Doctor... That the 11th Doctor calls the 10th Doctor Dick Van Dyke in a sly reference to his accent.
Does he? I thought it was 10 calling 11 that.
I don't know, because I...
And I can't pull it up now. I think so.
I don't have a transcript, and I thought it was the other way around, too.
I'm pretty sure that's wrong.
This is one of those moments where someone's going to be like, you really should pay more attention. But sometimes the dialogue goes right past me. I'm trying to pay attention.
We're human beings,
words.
Not like, yeah, it's fine.
If that's true, I don't entirely get it.
Yeah, that doesn't work for me, which is part of why I just don't think that's who was... I think they got that wrong.
Yeah.
And I did forget to mention how 11 is talking about how 10 is proper skinny. I never saw it from the outside before.
He is so skinny.
He is.
I mean, I had the pleasure of meeting him and standing next to him, and he had his arm around me, and I was like, good God. So skinny.
I think that's part of why I just can't find him that attractive. Like, in theory, I can, and I understand that he has, like, a good face and very good hair. But he's so, like, spindly that there's no way to have a fantasy about a guy like that when you're as heavy as me and not feel like you're going to crack him somehow, you know?
Right. I don't tend to like... I'm not normally attracted to men that are this skinny. No matter what size I am, he would always make me feel fat.
Yeah.
Because he's so, so thin. And it looks great on him, but I feel like I would break it.
Yeah, I mean, especially when somebody looks thin on camera, like, you know that they are very thin.
And I mean, like I said, I've been in his presence. It's not like it looks emaciated,
right?
But he's very thin, and Matt Smith is very thin too. And I haven't been around him, but he's,
that was kind of what got me like, wow, he must be really skinny. It was like Matt Smith is already like rather thin, and for him to be the one saying that, I was like, good Lord, somebody is like rail
David
thin.
Tennant's a little bit taller than Matt Smith too, I think, so it probably looks even skinnier because he's a couple inches taller.
All right, we really have to wrap up. It's been 2.5 hours, but Is there anything else you want to say before we finish this one off?
Nope. Just that I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas.
Same.
We'll be back, I don't know, the following
A
week?
happy holiday. Yeah, the following week. Okay. So, and hopefully, I will be able to recover from the plague in that time.
I hope you don't actually have it.
We
Fingers
will see
crossed.
by tonight or tomorrow morning. So, get my results back.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll see. All right, everybody. We love you. I hope that you enjoyed the episode. And for now, we will see you soon with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.